The first time I pretended not to understand, my daughter-in-law said something that made my blood freeze. "She's finally losing it," Karen whispered to my son Michael, thinking I couldn't hear. Thank God. The plan. Those two words echoed in my mind as I sat in my rocking chair, staring blankly at the wall, pretending to be confused about where I was. Michael waved his hand in front of my face. I blinked slowly, deliberately. Then I tilted my head and said, "Henry?" Henry was my late husband, dead for 7 years. Michael exchanged a look with Karen, a look of barely concealed excitement. "No, Mom, it's Michael." I frowned as if trying very hard to remember. Michael, I don't..." Karen grabbed Michael's arm and pulled him toward the kitchen. She thought she was out of earshot. She wasn't. "This is perfect," she hissed. "If she's this far gone, we can get power of attorney within a month." Michael asked, but his voice lacked conviction. "Your mother has a $3 million house sitting empty while we're struggling to pay our mortgage. She has stocks worth $500,000. She has savings we don't even know about. She's 72 years old with dementia. She doesn't even know your name anymore. The kindest thing we can do is take over her affairs and make sure she's comfortable." The way she said it made my skin crawl. Michael asked, "We sell it, obviously. She doesn't need a 4-bedroom house." I kept rocking in my chair, my face blank, my mind racing. I didn't have dementia. I had never had dementia. I had simply forgotten my car keys once too often. I had called my granddaughter by my daughter's name. I had asked the same question twice in one conversation. Normal things everyone does. But Karen had seen an opportunity, and now I knew exactly what she was planning. The question was, what was I going to do about it? Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. I am 72 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a loving family. I married my husband Henry when I was 22 years old. He was a construction foreman, strong and quiet, with hands that could build anything and a heart that was bigger than our small apartment. We had 2 children. Michael came first in 1978, then Sarah 2 years later. Henry and I worked hard. He built houses during the day. I worked as a bookkeeper for a trucking company at night. We saved every penny. We never took vacations. We never bought new cars. And slowly, carefully, we built wealth. Our first house cost $45,000. We bought it in 1982 when interest rates were 16%. Everyone said we were crazy. We paid it off in 8 years. Then we bought a second house, and a third, and a fourth. By the time Henry died in 2017, we owned 7 properties outright. No mortgages, no debts, pure equity. I sold 6 of them after his death, keeping only our family home. 1 million, 5 million. Nobody knew. Not Michael, not Sarah, not anyone. Henry and I had always lived modestly. We drove used cars. We shopped at discount stores. We never flaunted our wealth because we had seen what money did to people. I thought he was being cynical. I was wrong. The signs had been there for months. I just hadn't wanted to see them. "Eleanor, this house is too much for you," she said during a Sunday dinner 6 months ago. 4 bedrooms, a huge yard, all that maintenance. "I like my house," I replied. Karen's smile tightened. "Of course." Then Michael started asking questions about my finances. "Mom, do you have a financial advisor?" "But at your age, it can be complicated. The stock market, taxes, all that stuff. Karen and I could help you sort through everything." I thanked him and said I would think about it. Then the comments about my memory began. "Do you remember where you put your keys?" At first, I was embarrassed. Maybe I was getting forgetful. Maybe age was finally catching up with me. But then I noticed something strange. Every time I forgot something, Karen was there, watching, making mental notes. And every time Michael visited, he asked the same questions about my will, my savings, my plans for the house. I started to wonder if my forgetfulness was as bad as they were making it seem, or if they were planting seeds, waiting for me to doubt myself. So I decided to test them. 3 weeks ago, I pretended to get lost. I drove to the grocery store, parked in my usual spot, and then sat in the car for 2 hours. I didn't go inside, I just waited. When I got home, Michael and Karen were already there, looking frantic. "Mom, where were you?" I looked at them with confusion. "Calling? I went to..." Karen's eyes lit up. She tried to hide it, but I saw it. A flash of triumph. I was shopping? No, that's not right. I was going to see someone. Michael looked genuinely concerned, or at least he wanted to look concerned. Mom, this is serious. Maybe she needs to see a doctor, Karen suggested, her voice dripping with fake worry. The beginning of something. Yes, it was, but not what she thought. That night, after they left, I sat in my kitchen and made a decision. If they wanted to believe I had dementia, I would give them dementia. I would pretend to lose my mind completely. I would listen to every conversation. I would hear every whispered plan. And when I knew the full truth, I would destroy them. The performance began immediately. I started small, forgetting names, getting confused about dates, asking what day it was 3 times in an hour. Michael and Karen visited more frequently now, not out of love, but out of anticipation. Vultures circling a dying animal. I heard everything. Her decline is accelerating, Karen told Michael one evening while I sat in the next room, staring at a television that wasn't turned on. I talked to a lawyer. Couple of months. Then we control everything. The house, the bank accounts, the investments. My heart clenched. My daughter Sarah lived in Portland. We talked every week. She was the only one who hadn't changed. We keep Sarah out of it, Karen said firmly. She's always been your mother's favorite. She's also a bleeding heart who will want to keep your mother in this house until she dies. That could be another 15 years, Michael. I just feel like what? Your mother has millions of dollars. Millions, and she lives like a pauper. She drives a 2015 Honda. She buys clothes at Target. She clips coupons. And when she dies, who gets it? You and Sarah. So why wait? Michael was silent for a long moment. He finally asked. That silence was worse than anything Karen had said. My son had just agreed to steal from his own mother. The next few weeks brought more revelations. I learned that Michael owed $175,000 in debts he had never told me about. Credit cards, a second mortgage, loans from friends he couldn't repay. Karen had expensive tastes that Michael's salary couldn't support. Designer bags, luxury vacations, a country club membership that cost $15,000 a year. They were drowning, and they saw me as their life raft. I also learned what they planned to do with me. Maplewood Senior Living, Karen said one afternoon, showing Michael a brochure. It's 20 minutes away. Nice enough. $6,500 a month, but that's fine. Karen shrugged. However long she lasts. A year, maybe 2. She was talking about my death like she was planning a vacation. What if she needs more care? What if she doesn't decline? Karen smiled, a cold, calculating smile. There are ways to help that along, nothing illegal, just reducing stimulation, keeping her comfortable, quiet. They were planning to warehouse me, to isolate me, to let me wither away in silence while they spent my money, and my son was nodding along. I needed allies, people who would believe me when the time came. My first call was to my daughter, Sarah. Mom, is everything okay? Sarah, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm going to tell you something, and you cannot react. I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. What? I'm pretending, Sarah. I've been pretending for 3 weeks, and I've heard things. I told her everything. The conversations I had overheard, the plans for guardianship, the memory care facility. Sarah was silent for a long time. Mom, are you sure? I mean, Michael is... He's always been kind of weak, but this? I have no proof yet. Just what I've heard. But I'm going to get proof. The proof came faster than I expected. Michael brought a doctor to the house. Dr. Reynolds, a man in his 60s with gray hair and an expensive suit. Mrs. Mitchell, he said slowly, as if talking to a child, I'm going to ask you some questions. I stared at him blankly. He smiled the smile of someone who had already made up his mind. I'm a doctor. He asked me the date. I said 1987. He asked me who the president was. I said Reagan. He asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens. I started at 100, then said 92, then 84, then looked confused and started crying. I don't. Michael comforted me while Karen stood in the corner, barely containing her satisfaction. After the evaluation, I sat in my room while they talked in the kitchen. "Classic presentation of moderate dementia," Dr. Reynolds said. "Confusion, memory loss, emotional instability," Karen asked. "Of course, I'll prepare a formal evaluation." "Thank you, doctor." I heard the rustle of paper. Then Dr. Reynolds spoke again. "The consultation fee is $500. They were paying him. This wasn't a real medical evaluation. It was a purchase diagnosis. I waited until they left, then I got up and walked to the kitchen. I found the business card Dr. Reynolds had left on the counter. Dr. Richard Reynolds, MD, geriatric specialist. I photographed it with my phone. Then I photographed the brochures for Maplewood Senior Living that Karen had left behind, and the legal documents about guardianship that sat in a folder on the table. Evidence. I was building my case. 2 weeks later, I got my most important ally. His name was Thomas Whitmore, a lawyer recommended by a friend of Sarah's. He specialized in elder law and guardianship disputes. I met him at his office downtown, having told Michael and Karen that I was going to a hair appointment. "Mrs. Mitchell," Thomas said after hearing my story, "what your son and daughter-in-law are attempting is elder financial abuse. The recorded conversations you described would be powerful evidence." I shook my head. I wasn't recording. "Then we need to get some. Illinois is a two-party consent state, which means you need everyone's permission to record a conversation." He explained the legal options. We could wait until they filed for guardianship and fight it in court. We could go to the police now with what I knew, or we could set a trap. Create a situation where they incriminate themselves on record, somewhere with security cameras. Thomas leaned forward. "You said they're planning to sell your house. What if you made them think the sale was happening?" I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in months. The plan took 3 weeks to prepare. First, I got worse, much worse. I started wandering the neighborhood at night, forcing Michael and Karen to come rescue me. I stopped recognizing my own grandchildren. I called Karen by my sister's name, a sister who had died in 1994. Each incident increased their urgency. Each incident made them more careless. "We need to accelerate the timeline," I heard Karen say one night. "She's deteriorating faster than expected." "I'm working on it," Michael replied. "The lawyer says we can file for emergency guardianship. $8 million, my home. The house Henry and I had lived in for 47 years. Karen continued. "We should have the proceeds within 60 days. I froze. So did Karen. "Sarah abandoned this family years ago. She moved to Portland and left us to deal with Mom alone. She's a stranger. I've been here. I've been taking care of Mom. I've been the one making sacrifices. We tell Sarah that Mom only had the house, that there were no other assets, no savings, no investments. She won't. My son, my firstborn, the baby I had nursed and rocked and loved with every fiber of my being. He was planning to steal from his own sister. In that moment, whatever love remained for Michael died, completely and finally. The confrontation was set for the following Saturday. I told Michael and Karen that I had agreed to sign papers giving them control of my affairs. I said I understood I couldn't take care of myself anymore. I said I wanted them to handle everything. Karen nearly cried with joy. "Oh, Eleanor, this is the right decision. You won't have to worry about anything anymore." "Everything," I repeated blankly. "Yes." The meeting was scheduled for the office of their lawyer, a man named Gerald Hastings, who I suspected was in on the scheme. Thomas Whitmore would be there too, pretending to be a witness I had insisted on bringing. But the real witnesses were already in place. Sarah had flown in from Portland. She was waiting in a conference room adjacent to Hastings' office, watching through a one-way mirror that Hastings didn't know about. A private investigator I had hired was recording everything on hidden cameras we had installed the night before. And Detective Maria Santos from the Elder Abuse Unit was listening via a wire I was wearing under my sweater. The trap was set. All I had to do was play my part one final time. I arrived at the lawyer's office looking confused and helpless. Michael held my arm like I might wander off at any moment. Karen carried a folder full of documents. Gerald Hastings greeted us in his conference room. He was a thin man with thin lips and eyes that never quite met mine. Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for coming. We're here to discuss the transfer of power of attorney to your son, Michael. I nodded slowly. Yes, exactly. Karen jumped in. And we've already found you a lovely place to live, Eleanor. Very nice. Maplewood Senior Living. It's beautiful. I frowned. Michael patted my hand. We'll take care of the house, Mom. Karen and Michael exchanged a look. We might sell it eventually, Michael said carefully. It's for the best, Mom. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I turned to Thomas Whitmore, who was sitting quietly in the corner. Thomas stood up. Actually, Mrs. Gerald Hastings frowned. My name is Thomas Whitmore. I'm Mrs. Mitchell doesn't have an attorney. Her son is not her legal representative, not yet. Michael's face went pale. What is this? I looked at him, and for the first time in months, my eyes were clear. My voice was strong. What's going on, Michael, is that I've been listening. The room went silent. Karen's face twisted with confusion. Eleanor, you're not making sense. You have dementia. I don't have dementia, Karen. I never had dementia. I pretended to have dementia because I suspected you were planning to steal from me. I stood up from my chair, steady and strong. I heard you discuss putting me in a memory care facility. I heard you talk about selling my house. Michael stood up too, his voice rising. Mom, you don't know what you're saying. You're confused. The doctor said, Dr. Reynolds? The doctor you paid $500 in cash to give you a fake diagnosis? Michael's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. I have everything documented, I continued. Every conversation, every scheme. I pointed to the corner of the room where a tiny camera was hidden behind a plant. On cue, the door to the adjacent conference room opened. Sarah walked in first, her face streaming with tears. Behind her came Detective Santos and two uniformed officers. Karen screamed. This is entrapment. This is illegal. You can't. Mrs. Mitchell, Detective Santos said calmly, we have sufficient evidence to charge you and your husband with attempted elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud and theft by deception. Michael collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. Mom, please. I didn't mean... I was just trying to... Karen pushed me into this. You never wanted what, Michael? To steal from your mother? I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't undo betrayal. I looked at him one last time. The baby I had held in my arms, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the man I had trusted with my life. I loved you, Michael. I would have given you anything you asked for. All you had to do was ask, but you didn't want to ask. I turned and walked out of the room, Sarah at my side. Behind me, I heard Karen still screaming as the officers put her in handcuffs. I didn't look back. The aftermath was swift and devastating. Michael and Karen were both charged with multiple felonies. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings from my wire, the hidden camera footage, the testimony from Dr. Reynolds, who quickly agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency. Gerald Hastings lost his law license and faced charges of his own for his role in the scheme. The story made the local news. I did interviews. I told my story. I wanted other elderly people to know that they didn't have to accept abuse from their own families. Michael pleaded guilty to reduce charges. He was sentenced to 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and permanent estrangement from my financial affairs. Karen went to trial. The jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison. I watched her face as the verdict was read. There was no remorse, only rage. You ruined my life, she hissed at me as the bailiffs led her away. No, Karen, you ruined your own life. Sarah moved back to Chicago. She said she couldn't leave me alone after everything that happened. We live together now in my house, the house that Michael and Karen tried to steal, the house where Henry and I raised our family. Every morning, Sarah makes coffee, and we sit on the back porch, watching the birds in the garden. Mom, she said one morning, about 6 months after the trial, do you ever regret it? I thought about it. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my son became someone who could do what he did. But I don't regret protecting myself. I had received letters from Michael, apologetic, desperate, begging for forgiveness. I hadn't responded to any of them. I don't know if he'll change, I said honestly, but I know that I can't be part of his life while I wait to find out. Some wounds are too deep. Sarah nodded. She understood. What about his kids? That was harder. Emma was 14. Jake was 11. They had visited me regularly before all of this. Now their father had poisoned them against me, telling them I had lied about him, that I had ruined their family. I hope someday they'll be old enough to understand, I said. I hope they'll come to me and ask for my side of the story. That I loved their father, that I gave him everything I could, and that when he tried to steal my life away, I fought back. Last month, I turned 73. Sarah threw me a party. A real party, with friends and neighbors and people who genuinely cared about me. Dorothy from next door came. Thomas Whitmore came. Even Detective Santos came, bringing flowers and a card signed by her entire unit. You're a legend in our department, she told me. Your case is taught in training sessions now. How to recognize manipulation. How to gather evidence. I just did what I had to do, I said. During the party, I looked around at all the faces. People who were there because they wanted to be, not because they wanted something from me. This was family. Not blood, but choice. This was love. Not obligation, but genuine care. This was what I had almost lost to two greedy people who saw me as nothing more than a bank account. If you're listening to this story, I have something to tell you. Your worth is not determined by your usefulness to others. Your value does not diminish because you're getting older. And you have the right, always, to protect yourself from people who would harm you, even if those people share your blood. I pretended to have dementia for 8 months. I heard things that broke my heart. I learned truths that destroyed my image of my own son. But I also discovered something beautiful. I discovered that I was stronger than I knew, that I had allies who believed in me, that justice, while slow, was possible. Karen thought she would watch me waste away in a nursing home. Instead, she's the one in a facility now, just not the kind she planned for me. Michael thought he would inherit my fortune while I was still alive. Instead, he inherited nothing but consequences. And me? I'm still here, in my home, with my daughter, surrounded by people who love me, not because of my money, but because of who I am, the quiet grandmother who wasn't so quiet after all. And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.